My best friend had broken up and gotten back together with her boyfriend 18 times. I hadn't lost my mind yet, but her brother had. He cut her allowance on the spot. "Babe," she sobbed into the phone, "can you come with me to beg my brother? We'll kneel together. If he sees how sincere we are, he'll definitely soften up." I was in the middle of a ranked match when she called. My mage was hiding in a patch of brush, waiting to ambush the enemy jungler, and I didn't even blink as I sent him straight back to the fountain. The only thing that wavered was my soul. "Hold on," I said flatly. "Why am I kneeling too?" There was a guilty pause on the other end. Then my best friend, Summer Carter, answered with absolute confidence. "Because if it's just me, my brother might stay mad, but if you come too, he'll definitely forgive me." I stared at my phone in silence. Somewhere in the city, wealth and delusion were clearly living under the same roof. Summer and I had been friends since high school. She was a spoiled rich girl with too much charm, too much freedom, and absolutely no sense of self-preservation. The greatest suffering she had ever experienced in this life was romantic suffering. And unfortunately for all of us, she was deeply, hopelessly, dramatically tangled up with one person. Ethan Brooks. Her on-again, off-again disaster of a boyfriend. They had known each other since childhood. They grew up in the same circle, went to the same schools, attended the same parties, and fought like sworn enemies for most of their lives. Summer was sunshine, loud, playful, dramatic, always smiling. Ethan was the opposite, moody, sharp, the kind of guy who looked at people like he was already bored of them. As kids, everyone adored Summer and avoided Ethan. Summer had once tried to include him. Every time another kid approached her, Ethan would get mad. Eventually she got mad too. After that, they spent years sniping at each other like two beautiful lunatics. Then, in senior year, Ethan's family went under. He disappeared overnight. They didn't see each other again until 2 years ago, when Summer ran into him at a club. Since then, they had been locked in a cycle of attraction. Chaos, breakups, reunions, crying, cursing, kissing, and then starting all over again. An epic love story, if you were deeply unwell. I leaned back in my chair and rubbed my forehead. "So what did he do this time?" Summer sniffled. "I was going to Europe to recover from heartbreak. I really was. I had already packed. I was literally driving to the airport, and then Ethan chased after me." "That sounds familiar." I was determined to break up for real this time. I was, but then he got a tongue piercing. I closed my eyes. "Summer. It looked really good, Chloe." Of course it did. And just like that, the airport was forgotten and the hotel was booked. I let the silence stretch long enough for her to feel some shame. It didn't work. "Are you mad at me?" she asked carefully. I was. Summer could do all kinds of ridiculous things, and I never stayed angry at her. If anything, I just wished that instead of hanging herself emotionally from the same tree 18 times, she'd go pick 18 new ones. "I'm not mad," I said, "just spiritually exhausted." She laughed weakly, then finally got to the point. "My brother cut my allowance in half. Chloe, I only have $10,000 a month now. How am I supposed to live like this?" I opened my banking app and stared at the number on my screen. $88.23. For a moment, I wanted to ask God if I too could experience the pain of being unable to survive on $10,000 a month. Instead I asked, "Why is your brother this mad?" Summer's voice dropped to a whisper. "Every time Ethan and I fight, I ask my brother to ruin Ethan's company." I sat there for a second. Then another. "Summer. And every time Ethan and I get back together, I regret it immediately." "Sis," I said honestly, "the fact that your brother hasn't buried you in the backyard means he has the patience of a saint. Will you still come with me?" "No. I'll split the money he gives me with you." I sat up straighter. "For friendship, of course, definitely friendship." "When are we going?" "Tomorrow morning, he's flying back from London." I was quiet for a beat. Then I said with all the dignity poverty had left me, "For you, babe, I would cross mountains of knives and seas of fire." The next morning, Summer pulled up outside my apartment in her Maserati. I climbed into the passenger seat of the rich girl chariot and spent the whole drive thinking about what kneeling position looked most graceful. Summer, meanwhile, was radiant with confidence. "The second my brother walks in, we start crying," she said. "Then we throw ourselves at his legs and beg. Easy." I turned to look at her. "Are you serious?" "My brother looks cold, but he's soft-hearted." I nearly laughed. Her brother wasn't soft-hearted. Her brother was the kind of man who made strangers instinctively step out of his way. Women stayed back. Men stayed farther back. He had one of those faces that looked expensive and dangerous at the same time. And I hadn't seen him in 3 years. Still, I was mentally rehearsing my most respectable kneeling posture when something strange flashed across my vision. Lines of text. Like live comments floating in the air. I blinked. They were still there. I almost laughed. If the crown prince finds out his sister dragged his future wife into this, her allowance is definitely going straight to zero. Just thinking about it is enough to make her brother mad all over again. He's been secretly in love for more than 10 years. He finally comes back, and the first thing he sees is his little sister and her best friend kneeling in the living room like they're filming a melodrama. If he doesn't fall harder, who will? First time he met her in high school, he wanted to say she was beautiful. Opened his mouth and said she didn't look human. Foreign language system fully upgraded now. Back then, he was basically a tragedy. I stared ahead. What? Future wife. Crown prince. Who were they talking about? Before I could make sense of any of it, Summer slammed on the brakes outside her family's mansion. And just like that, disaster began. The mansion doors opened. Summer and I were already in position. The marble floor was cold beneath my knees. Summer had arranged us side by side in the middle of the living room like two offerings to a very irritated god. When the front door clicked shut, the entire house went still. I didn't dare look up immediately. I only saw polished black shoes stop in front of us. Then silence. A terrifying, expensive kind of silence. Summer deserved an Oscar. Tears burst out of her like she had a hidden faucet. "Brother," she wailed, "I know I was wrong, please restore my allowance, I can't survive like this." Her voice cracked at all the right places, her shoulders shook, her makeup held, incredible. Even I was a little moved. If she cried this well on camera, she wouldn't still be playing nameless side characters with 3 lines and a tragic haircut. She tugged hard on my sleeve. It was my turn. My face burned. It had been 3 years since I'd seen Ryan Carter, and somewhere in that time, I had apparently lost whatever ability I once had to speak to him normally. "Ryan," I said, keeping my eyes on the floor, "Summer really knows she was wrong. She cried all day yesterday because she was scared you'd stop talking to her." A housekeeper nearby coughed. "Miss Chloe," she said gently, "that child only knelt because she heard he was home." Lies exposed. Excellent. I thought Ryan would get angrier. Instead, after a beat, I heard movement, calm footsteps, then they stopped directly in front of me. For one horrifying second, I thought he might actually kick me. Honestly, if it came down to money, I was prepared to die with honor and grab his leg on the way out. But when Ryan finally moved, his hand came toward me, not to shove, not to punish. To help. I panicked and grabbed his arm on instinct. His body stilled. Then, very slowly, his other hand came around to steady me as he helped me up from the floor. I was still clutching his sleeve. He didn't pull away. Instead, he crouched in front of me. My breath caught. He tilted his head slightly and looked down at my knees, like he was checking whether the marble had hurt me. Strange tension around him, something contained and sharp. Like he was angry, but not for the reason we thought. The housekeeper sighed, "Ryan, the floor is cold." He didn't look away from me. "Are you uncomfortable?" I shook my head too fast. Beside us, Summer tried weakly, "I'm a little uncomfortable." Ryan turned to her at last. "If you want forgiveness," he said calmly, "keep kneeling." Summer froze. I nearly choked. We had lost. Spectacularly. And then those floating comments appeared again. These two really are best friends. Between them, they don't even add up to one functioning brain cell. Ethan had to work hard to win the sister. Ryan has been suffering way longer. Try kissing the crown prince instead. That would work faster than kneeling. I bet Summer's about to accidentally help her brother find a wife. I stared at the words in disbelief. Summer, meanwhile, had clearly reached the end of her planning abilities. She whispered to me, "Do you think my brother's just been single too long? Maybe that's why his temper is so bad." I said nothing. She was already pulling out her phone. "This won't work, I'm happy now, I can't let my brother suffer forever. Maybe we should set him up on a blind date. Once he gets a girlfriend, he'll calm down, and if I have a sister-in-law, my life will be even better." I watched her in silence. The comments were nearly dying of laughter. In the chaos of those floating words, one line burned brighter than the rest. "Just kiss Ryan once, problem solved." I looked at Summer, who was now apparently building a spreadsheet of eligible women. Then I looked at Ryan. His sleeve was still in my hand. My bank balance flashed through my mind like a religious vision. For Summer, for friendship, definitely not for the money. Before I could think too hard about it, I reached up, grabbed his wrist, and pressed a quick kiss to his cheek. Everything stopped. Ryan went rigid. So did I. Oh no. This was it. This was the moment he finally had me thrown out of the Carter estate and blacklisted from every decent neighborhood in Manhattan. The courage that had possessed me vanished instantly. My head dropped. I wished the floor would open and swallow me whole. Then Ryan's hand closed around mine. Not rough. Not cold. Steady. His voice, when it came, was so low it felt like it brushed across my skin. "Chloe." Just my name. But the way he said it made my heartbeat trip over itself. It's been a long time. I couldn't tell if I imagined the softness in his tone or not. My knees went weak again. Somehow I grabbed Summer, dragged her upright, and fled the mansion before either of us could die. The second we got in the car, her phone chimed. She looked down. Then up. Then down again. My brother transferred me $100,000. Her mouth had been hanging open ever since I kissed Ryan. I kindly pushed it shut for her. She turned to me slowly. "Babe," she whispered, "why?" I stared ahead in numb silence. Summer was the first one to recover enough to make a theory. "Wait, is my brother secretly like one of those weird fast food reward systems? Begging didn't work, but one kiss and he folded." I still said nothing. She drove me home, then stopped me before I got out. "Oh, and that idiot Jason called me," she said. "He wants to talk to you." I blinked. "Block him." Summer looked at me for a long moment. Then she sighed. "You're incredible. When you decide to break up, you really break up." I smiled, but it hurt a little. It wasn't because I was strong. It was because I knew Jason Miller had never really loved me. And if the moon I had wanted for so many years could never belong to me alone, then I didn't want it anymore. Jason and I had grown up next door to each other. He was the kind of boy everyone noticed. Brilliant, handsome, effortlessly popular. The kind of boy who won awards, won arguments, won attention, and never seemed to lose anything at all. Everyone liked him. I did too. More than I should have. For years, I followed him around like a tail. I studied late every night just to get into the same schools he went to, just to stand a little closer beside him, just to make us look like we belonged in the same frame. When we graduated high school, I confessed. Jason had laughed, a bright, careless laugh, and rubbed my head. Our Chloe's all grown up. His friends laughed too. One of them said, "Wait, you didn't know, Jason already has a girlfriend." I remember slowly shaking my head. The night before, Jason had come to my house and talked about college, about the future, and in every version of it, I had been there. Then another girl appeared. A campus beauty who had confessed first. They'd already been together for nearly a month. Jason pinched my cheek and smiled like he was being kind. "I've always thought of you as a little sister." I still went to the same college. It was the best school my grades could get me into. But after orientation, I started avoiding him. I needed time. Space. A place to bury all the feelings I had dragged through childhood like a secret wound. That lasted until the day he cornered me outside the library. He had dyed his hair light brown by then. It made his skin look paler, his features sharper. He looked even more striking than before, which felt deeply unfair. "Chloe," he said, arching a brow, "are you avoiding me?" "No," I said quietly, "I've just been busy." He smiled. "If you're not avoiding me, why did you block me?" I looked at him. "If you don't like me, why keep reaching for me? You already had a girlfriend. Why do you still want me orbiting around you?" I made myself say it. "You have a girlfriend, we should keep some distance." He looked almost amused. Like he hadn't expected me to really leave. Like he thought I would hurt for a while and then come back, same as always. Before he could say anything else, a hand reached out and pulled me aside. "Move." The voice was cold enough to cut. "Ryan." Jason's expression darkened as he looked from me to Ryan, then down to the hand still gripping my wrist. "Let go of her." I exhaled, not even realizing I had been holding my breath, and instinctively caught the sleeve of Ryan's jacket. Jason went still. "Come here, Chloe." I didn't move. He tried to reach for me, but Ryan stepped between us. Then Ryan said something I would remember for years. "No one stays in one place waiting forever." Jason froze. Ryan took me away. When I looked back, Jason was standing where we'd left him, his face dark and unreadable. Ryan brought me to a dessert cafe off campus. The tears on my face hadn't dried. And even though I hated it, even though I was ashamed of how weak it made me feel, the pain in my chest still came in waves when I thought about Jason. My parents had divorced when I was young. I lived with my mom. She was beautiful, too beautiful, according to other people. A divorced woman with a daughter was apparently public property for gossip. Boys in the neighborhood used to sneer, "Your dad didn't want you." I never knew how to fight that kind of hurt. But Jason always had. He'd stand in front of me and say, "I'm older than Chloe by 2 months. I'm the big brother. Big brothers protect little sisters." That was how I became the little tail behind him. So when my heart first learned how to ache, it ached toward him. I spent years hoping he'd turn around and see me. He never did. Or maybe he did. Just not in the way I wanted. Thinking about it made fresh tears spill down my face. Ryan watched me in silence, his hands tightening once before loosening again. Then he passed me a stack of napkins. "Don't cry." I cried harder. He exhaled softly, leaned forward, and wiped the tears off my face himself. His eyes were unusually gentle. "Chloe," he said quietly, "you really are a fool." That day, he ordered half the dessert menu. He barely touched anything. He just sat across from me in silence, solid and still, like some impossible combination of winter and shelter. Back then, every time I saw Ryan, summer was between us, smoothing things over, filling the air, turning his coldness into something survivable. That afternoon was the first time we'd ever really been alone. And I was too embarrassed to know what to do with that. I didn't want to cry in front of him, but holding it back felt worse. I wanted to talk, but I was afraid if I opened my mouth, all the pain I'd swallowed for years would come pouring out and burden him. Even the desserts I loved tasted dull. Ryan seemed to notice all of it. He lowered his gaze slightly. I texted Summer, "She'll come stay with you." Relief spread through me before I could stop it. Then he added, "You don't have to be afraid of bothering me. If you ever need me, you can call." I looked up at him in shock. Ryan Carter had always been known for being cold, distant, arrogant, the kind of rich air people admired from far away and never approached too closely. Hearing something so soft come out of his mouth felt almost supernatural. Especially because when we first met, he had not been soft. The first time Summer dragged me over to introduce us, she'd grinned and said, "Ryan, isn't my best friend gorgeous?" Dee looked at me for a long moment and said, "She doesn't look human." I had spent years assuming he didn't like me. So now, sitting across from me in the warm cafe light and telling me I could always call him, he seemed almost like a different person. I was so moved, I nearly cried again. "Thank you, Ryan," I said, voice trembling. "You're the best brother ever." Something in his expression changed. Very slightly. I was too heartbroken to understand it then. A week later, Jason's friends called me. "Chloe, come pick Jason up," one of them said. "He's drunk and keeps calling your name. You should call his girlfriend." They broke up already, Chloe, just come. Then, as if that wasn't enough. "The person he likes has always been you." After the call, I stared at my phone for a long time. Then I went. I should have known better. But old feelings are like expired chocolate. You know they're bad for you. Sometimes you still can't help tasting them. When I got to the bar, Jason was sprawled across a leather couch under shifting violet lights. His hair caught the glow in soft gold-brown streaks. Even drunk, he looked like the kind of mistake girls wrote songs about. His friends left the second they saw me. Before they went, one of them clapped my shoulder and said, "We've never seen him like this. He's been out of control all night." I stood there and looked at Jason for a moment. He looked fragile. Or maybe I just wanted him to. I reached out, intending to poke his face and wake him. Instead, his hand shot up and caught mine. "Chloe," he murmured, eyelids still lowered. "Is that you?" I didn't answer. He squeezed my hand tighter. "I'm sorry, I like you, I always liked you. I just didn't understand my own heart." I stood very still. His voice was low and unsteady with drink. "These past few days I can't stop thinking about you. Chloe, do you miss me?" How could I not? Jason had been the brightest color in my entire youth. My first crush. My first hope. My first humiliation. The sweetness, the waiting, the fear, the jealousy, the nights of crying into my pillow and smiling like nothing was wrong the next morning so my mother wouldn't worry, all of it had come from him. His confession felt rotten and irresistible at the same time. Like something damaged that still smelled faintly sweet. "Yes," I whispered. "I miss you." He smiled then. Really smiled. The old kind, the one that could still make my chest tighten. He cupped my face and kissed me. "Good," he said, "then let's be together." And just like that, I went back. We started dating. Jason gave me a key to the apartment he rented near campus. On weekends, we cooked together, watched movies, fell asleep on the couch, and built the kind of future I had once imagined all alone. For a while, I thought maybe I had one. Maybe all the waiting had finally meant something. Maybe love really could come back, if you wanted it badly enough. Then I ran into Ryan again. I was waiting outside a lecture hall for Jason when Ryan walked across the courtyard, carrying a bouquet of pink roses. He looked like he had prepared carefully. Dark coat, crisp shirt, faint cologne I could smell even from a distance. He had always been attractive, but college had sharpened him into something almost unfair. Since enrolling, he'd become one of the most talked about men on campus. Wealthy, brilliant, untouchable. Everyone liked looking at him. No one really dared approach him. So naturally, the sight of him holding flowers drew attention immediately. I was curious despite myself. "Ryan," I said, smiling politely, "what a coincidence." The pink petals trembled slightly in the wind. Something about them felt strangely familiar. Like the bouquet I'd received after the college entrance exams. Ryan's voice was very soft. "Not a coincidence." I didn't hear him clearly. Before I could ask what he meant, Jason came out of the building. He wrapped an arm around my waist and pulled me close, grinning at Ryan with lazy satisfaction. "Seeing you again," he said. "I was just telling Chloe we should treat you to dinner sometime. If it weren't for you, I never would have realized how I felt. So thanks, otherwise I wouldn't have such an amazing girlfriend." My cheeks warmed. Then he asked, "You're really together?" "Yes." I glanced back at Jason, who was watching us now. My chest warmed instinctively. Ryan was silent for a beat. Then he said, "I hope you're happy." At the time, I thought that was all. I didn't know that was the beginning of his leaving. By sophomore year, Summer told me Ryan had gone abroad for further study. After that, for 3 years, I barely saw him at all. My memory snapped back to the present when Summer flicked my forehead from behind the wheel. "You're thinking too hard again," she said. "Good, think of ways to ruin Jason emotionally." I laughed despite myself. Then she remembered something. "Oh right, Sunday, class reunion, are you going?" Our homeroom teacher had retired. It had already been 5 years since graduation. Some meetings only happened once before they disappeared forever. I nodded. "I'll go." Summer was still worried. "Want me to find out if Jason's going?" I shook my head. "We're neighbors. I can't avoid him for the rest of my life. And why should I? I didn't do anything wrong." Summer's eyes gleamed with mischief. "Fine," she said. "Then just wait. I'll make sure you absolutely stun the room." The last time she said that, she'd hired 18 male models. So no, I wasn't reassured. What I didn't know was that Jason had already heard I was attending. And somewhere else in the city, he was trying on shirt after shirt in front of a mirror, convinced I would still be waiting for him. Because from childhood until now, I always had. Or at least, that was what he believed. Jason arrived early to the reunion. He had joined a major company after graduation and climbed faster in 1 year than most people managed in 10. Everyone knew it. Everyone said it. Compliments followed him like confetti. Usually he enjoyed that. That night, he barely heard any of it. He kept glancing toward the door. The class president noticed. "Looking for Chloe." Jason didn't answer. To outsiders, I had always been the one chasing him. He was used to that version of the story. The class president shook his head. "You like her and still don't know what you're doing. You were like this at graduation, and you're like this now. Not everyone stays where you left them." Jason leaned back, voice cool. "Chloe will, she can't leave me." At that exact moment, Summer swept in wearing a sea green dress and the kind of smile that meant trouble. She saw Jason and laughed without any warmth. "Oh, still alive." Jason ignored her. "Where's Chloe?" Summer sat down slowly across from him. "What's the rush? You'll see soon enough." Then she smiled in a way that made him uneasy. A few minutes later, I walked in. With Ryan. The room stilled just a little. I smiled at the class president. "I hope it's okay I brought someone." He blinked, then recovered immediately. "Of course." Summer grinned like the devil and clapped once. "This is my brother." No further introduction was needed. Everybody there knew Ryan Carter. Back in high school, he had already been legendary. The student who scored impossibly high, the heir from the city's most powerful family, the senior who felt less like a classmate and more like a roomer. Even Jason had never matched his academic numbers. A person like that didn't belong naturally in rooms like this. Not unless he wanted to. And smart people know when not to bring up old history directly. So instead, the teasing started. Chloe, when are you two getting married? You better invite us. You guys look insane together. How long have you been dating? I could feel Jason's stare like heat against the side of my face. Ryan smiled faintly. When we get married depends on Chloe, he said. I'm still waiting for her to give me a title. The room exploded. The comments flashed across my vision too, going wild. Summer finally did something useful. If not for her, the crown prince would still be crying in secret. He heard his sister call him Chloe's boyfriend once and immediately transferred her 100 grand. He's gone. He wants a title, he really wants a title. Look at Jason's face, he's about to crush that teacup. I sat there in a daze. A title. Ryan wanted official status. The entire reunion passed in a blur after that. I didn't talk to Jason once. At the end of the evening, Summer and I went to say goodbye to our former homeroom teacher. Ryan stood a short distance away, waiting for us. Jason approached then, his expression dark. Chloe is mine. Ryan didn't even look at him. I already told you, no one waits forever. Jason laughed like he didn't believe a word of it. She's just mad at me, we grew up together. Do you really think she can let go of all those years that easily? Ryan finally turned. There was a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Cold. Mocking. Useless. Jason's face changed instantly. Maybe because Ryan almost never showed emotion so directly. What did you say? Ryan's voice stayed calm. She was good to you, she was kind, she was all heart, and you still managed to make her this angry. If that's not useless, what is? Jason stepped forward. Ryan went on. Without Chloe, you're nothing but a stray dog. My breath caught. The comment screamed. The crown prince is so hot. He almost never gets emotional. He's losing it because of her. I can't wait for the romance arc. The text floating in front of me took a sudden turn into things I absolutely did not need to read in public, and I nearly choked. I hurried toward Ryan before the night got any stranger. The second I reached him, he stepped forward too, as if he had been restraining himself from doing it sooner. His arms came around me lightly. Finished, he asked. I nodded. There are a few things I want to say to Jason. Ryan released me at once. But his hand stayed around mine. That one simple touch gave me more courage than I expected. I looked straight at Jason for the first time in a year. If we've broken up, I said, then let's break up peacefully. He stared at me. You mean that? Yes. His jaw tightened. We've known each other this long. I only made one small mistake. Ryan's fingers tightened around mine. And just like that, all my fear vanished. I looked at Jason, really looked at him. At first you told me kissing other girls was just to make me jealous, to make me care more. During the time I was with you, I kept questioning myself. Was I not pretty enough, not interesting enough, not enough for you to stop hurting me? His face changed. I kept going. You flirted with girls in front of me, you brought up breaking up over and over. You tested my sincerity like it was some game you were entitled to win. But I'm a person, Jason, I'm not an object. I feel pain, I get sad. Love is not supposed to look like that. He opened his mouth. I didn't let him speak. You don't love me, you love yourself. The room had gone completely silent. The only thing I'm grateful for, I said, is that you didn't destroy my ability to love someone else. So yes, I'm going to walk toward my next relationship with my head up. But you. I looked at him calmly. You don't know how to love anyone, and people like you never really find happiness. For a second, nobody moved. Then Jason stood there in total stillness, like something had finally shattered deep enough inside him that even pride couldn't cover it. I turned away first. Ryan opened the car door for me later, with a quiet kind of care that somehow hurt more than anything dramatic. I got into the passenger seat. Summer climbed into the back. And then, because she could not let a serious moment live in peace, she leaned forward and asked her brother brightly, By the way, you're not getting any younger. When are you finding me a sister-in-law? I want one. A nice one. Ryan kept his eyes on the road. I already have someone. Summer froze. Where? My face went hot before I even understood why. Ryan said very calmly, right in front of you. Summer went dead silent for 3 whole seconds. Then she shrieked so loudly, I almost dropped my phone. Oh my God, are you a genius? How did I never think of that? Chloe, marry into my family, please. My brother's condition is actually pretty great, and if you become my sister-in-law, we'll never have to be apart. The comments exploded again. The sister finally gets it. Congratulations to the crown prince. After 10 years, the tree finally fell in the right direction. I wanted to disappear. Ryan only glanced at me once. But that one glance made my pulse race all the way home. After that night, Ryan stopped hiding. Not in the least. He sent pink roses every day. Not red, pink. Always pink. He texted good morning without fail. Asked whether I'd eaten. Asked if I was tired. Asked if I needed anything. Asked if I wanted him to pick me up, drop me off, bring me coffee, review a contract, fix a problem, ruin somebody's life. That last one was probably Summer's influence. I had known Ryan for years. I had never known this version of him. The man everyone else called cold and untouchable turned out, in private, to be straightforward to the point of danger. Once he stopped holding back, he was almost startlingly honest. Possessive without being controlling. Protective without making me feel small. Quiet but never withholding. It took me embarrassingly little time to realize I liked being loved this way. One afternoon, while holding yet another bouquet of pink roses, I finally remembered something. Wait, I said, looking up at him. The flowers I got after the college entrance exams were those from you. Ryan lowered his head and kissed the corner of my mouth. Yes. I blinked. Did you already like me back then? His mouth paused against my skin. Then he pulled back just enough to look at me. Not back then. I crossed my arms. I knew it, you hated me. He laughed softly. A rare sound. No. Then what was that line the first time we met? She doesn't look human. The corners of his lips lifted. I was trying to say you looked unreal, like something too beautiful to be real. I stared at him. He continued, almost as if confessing to a crime. It was the first time I liked someone. I didn't know how to say it. I narrowed my eyes. And what about the time you said I smelled weird? Ryan's expression stayed perfectly calm. I meant you smelled good. And when you said I had a simple brain. You make complicated things feel simple. I pointed at him. That one does not sound flattering. He caught my hand and kissed my fingertip. That one is my fault. I lost immediately. Ryan had a terrifying advantage. He looked too serious to joke, so when he said things like that, they hit twice as hard. The truth came out in pieces after that. He had liked me from the first time Summer brought me home in high school. He had watched me trail after Jason year after year. He had tried to help with tutoring when Summer and I were seniors. He had taken me to that dessert cafe because he couldn't stand seeing me cry. He had shown up that day on campus with flowers because he had planned to confess. And Jason had gotten there first. No. That wasn't right. Jason had simply taken back something he had never wanted to value until someone else did. Ryan had gone abroad afterward. He never said it dramatically, but I knew why. Some loves are too heavy to carry in front of the person you want. Time passed quietly after that. Beautifully. I found myself relaxing in ways I never had before. With Jason, I had always been waiting for pain to come back in a different outfit. With Ryan, I stopped checking for exits. Real love does not make you doubt your worth. Real love does not train you to apologize for needing gentleness. Real love doesn't leave you guessing whether you matter. A year later, Ryan proposed. There were pink roses again, of course. Summer cried harder than I did. She claimed it was because true love moved her. I suspected it was because she was already imagining the social benefits of calling me family. We set a wedding date. I didn't send Jason an invitation. But somehow, a gift still arrived. A ring. Years ago, when we were still students with barely any money, I had seen a simple wedding ring in a store window and tried it on. Jason had smiled and said, "When we get married one day, I'll buy you this one." At the time, I had treasured that promise like it was gold. Now, when I opened the box, I felt nothing. No ache. No trembling. No grief. Just stillness. I asked our former class president to return it to him. Everything connected to Jason Miller had nothing to do with me anymore. On the day of the wedding, I stood in white. Ryan stood beside me, his gaze fixed on me so steadily it felt like a vow even before he spoke one. And in that moment, I understood something with complete clarity. A good love makes you better, not smaller. A good love does not leave you stranded in the past. So if you're still standing where someone left you, hoping they'll come back and choose you at last, don't. Walk forward. Find the kind of love that lets you bloom instead of bleed. Find the kind of love that teaches you peace. And then, if you can, begin your happiness. Jason had known since childhood that Chloe Bennett was his. Not in any official sense. Not even in a way he ever said aloud. But she had always been there. A sweet little tail behind him, bright-eyed, loyal, easy to find in every crowd because she was always looking at him. He had told himself that was enough. That it would stay enough forever. At first, protecting her had felt natural. The boys who mocked her because of her parents' divorce annoyed him. He hated seeing her eyes go red, hated the way she tried not to cry. So he stood in front of her. Spoke for her. Taught her to rely on him. Over time, that instinct twisted. Protection became possession. Not because Chloe ever belonged to him. Because he couldn't stand the idea of her belonging anywhere else. She was good. Too good. She made friends, people liked her, teachers praised her, other boys noticed her. Jason found all of them irritating. Then Chloe met Summer Carter. Summer was a menace. Loud, fearless, impossible to control. She dragged Chloe to the Carter house over and over again, and Chloe almost never said no because, outside of Jason, Summer was one of the few people she considered truly close. Jason had tried to interfere. Summer only pushed harder. That was how Chloe started spending more time around the Carters. At first, Jason didn't care about Ryan Carter. Ryan was older, in a different grade, one of those near-mythical students teachers talked about with dramatic size and impossible standards. But then his name started appearing too often in Chloe's life. Ryan helped us with math. Ryan explained that chapter so well. Ryan knows everything. Ryan's amazing. By senior year, the name had become unbearable. One day Jason went to the bakery, where Summer, Chloe, and Ryan were supposed to be studying. Chloe had stayed up too late the night before. She fell asleep over her notes after less than an hour. Jason stood outside the glass and watched Ryan take off his jacket and drape it gently over her shoulders. That was the first time Jason felt it clearly. Threat. He had always thought he was exceptional. Then he saw Ryan and understood there were people in the world who were just built taller, sharper, stronger, more certain. And Ryan was looking at Chloe in a way Jason recognized immediately. With care. With intent. With the kind of patience that scared him. When Chloe confessed after graduation, Jason had been happy. Truly happy. But that happiness carried something ugly with it. He wanted her to hurt the way he had hurt watching her smile at Ryan. He wanted her to learn that he wasn't something she could just have whenever she reached out. So he rejected her. He thought she would stay anyway. He thought there was still time. And when he realized Ryan might step into the space he'd made, Jason pulled Chloe back toward him again. It worked. For a while. Because Chloe was gentle. Because Chloe loved deeply. Because no matter how badly he behaved, some part of him believed she would always still be there. Ryan once told him, no one stays in one place waiting forever. Jason hadn't believed him. What he never admitted, not even to himself, was that his relationship with Chloe had become a test he could not stop setting. The more beautiful she became, the more accomplished, the more people liked her, the more afraid he grew. So he hurt her to prove she would stay. He flirted with other girls to make her jealous. Mentioned breaking up to make her panic. Pushed and pulled until the hurt in her eyes became unbearable. And still he didn't stop. Until one day, Chloe looked at him calmly and said, "Let's break up." Back to zero. He remembered Ryan's words then. No one stays in one place waiting forever. It had sounded like a warning when Ryan said it. In the end, it became prophecy. Years later, Jason would still think of Chloe sometimes. Not because memory is romantic. Because regret is. And just as she told him, a person who only knows how to love himself never really finds happiness. A few days before the wedding, Summer burst into my apartment without knocking, flopped onto my couch, and announced, "I've decided something." I didn't look up from the seating chart. That's always dangerous. She ignored me. "If you marry my brother, I want full credit." Ryan, who was sitting at my dining table reviewing a contract, didn't even lift his head. "You can have partial credit for creating obstacles." Summer gasped. "I literally handed you your wife." Ryan signed a page, calm as ever. "You dragged her into kneeling on a marble floor. And it worked. You got lucky." I watched them bicker for a minute and had one of those strange little moments that arrive out of nowhere, when happiness feels so natural that you almost don't notice how rare it is. Then Summer turned to me and narrowed her eyes. "Why are you smiling like that?" "Because your brother is in love with me and you're still arguing like children." She sat up. "Excuse you, I'm mature now. Didn't you and Ethan break up twice last month?" "That is not the point." Ryan finally looked up. "It actually is the point." Summer pointed at him dramatically. "See, this is why you needed Chloe. You were emotionally constipated for 10 years. Ryan's pen paused. I coughed to hide a laugh. Summer looked between us and grinned slowly, wickedly. "Oh, so you did tell her." Ryan said nothing. That was answer enough. Summer clapped her hands once. "Great, then I can finally ask the question that's been eating me alive. Ryan, when exactly did you realize you were in love with Chloe?" Ryan's gaze shifted to me. Steady, quiet, deep enough to make my pulse change. "The first time I saw her." Summer slapped the couch and screamed. I covered my face. "Please don't encourage her," I muttered. Too late. She was already off. I knew it, and all those years you acted like some tragic, silent emperor watching your kingdom collapse while Chloe chased after that idiot next door. "Summer," I warned. She leaned across the sofa toward me. "No, seriously, babe, you have to appreciate the full scale of my brother's suffering. You cried over Jason once at 16, and Ryan almost drove into a river." Ryan closed the contract folder. "That's enough. Make me." He stood. She ran. Their mother found them that way 20 minutes later, Ryan trying to confiscate Summer's phone while Summer ran laps around the kitchen island screaming, "Don't kill me, I'm your only sister." I sat at the counter, laughing so hard I nearly cried. Mrs. Carter sighed fondly, kissed my cheek, and said, "Welcome to the family." And just like that, something inside me settled even deeper. Not because everything was perfect. Because it was warm. Because it was safe. Because for the first time in my life, love did not feel like a cliff I had to stand at the edge of. It felt like home. On the morning of the wedding, the city outside was bright and clear. I stood in front of the mirror, while Summer adjusted my veil with suspicious concentration. "You know," she said, "if you cry too much, I'm going to look better in the photos." "I hate you." "You love me." I did. A few minutes later, she softened. For once, completely. "Chloe." I met her eyes in the mirror. She smiled a little. "Thank you for staying in my life long enough to become my family." That almost made me cry more than the vows. When the music started and I stepped forward, Ryan turned. "People say you remember your wedding in flashes. The flowers. The lights. The way your hands shake. The sound of everyone watching. Maybe that's true. But what I remember most is his face. Not overwhelmed, not stunned. Certain. As if he had been walking toward this moment in his heart for years. As if, after everything, he had finally reached the place he had always meant to arrive. And when I put my hand in his, I realized I felt the same. The past had not disappeared. It had simply stopped owning me. There is a difference. A deep one. An important one. The kind that can save your life. So if someone once taught you to beg for love, to endure love, to shrink for love, unlearn it. Please. Love is not supposed to turn you into a ghost in your own story. Love is supposed to bring you back to yourself. Ryan looked at me as if I was the answer to a prayer he had kept private for too many years. And when he said, I do, I believed him with my whole heart. This time, I wasn't standing still for someone who might choose me. I was walking forward with someone who already had.